Yes. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. And so my name is Avinash, and I'll be your host for today's evening. So before we begin, just let me go through some points so that you get to know what you can do within the webinar. And yeah, so basically, everyone gets the opportunity to participate in today's event. And if you have, I totally understand you might be having a lot of questions till the end of the session. So you're free enough to put your questions in the chat section. Also, we'll be coming up with poll questions as well, just to make it clear. If anyone is using the older version of Zoom app, please do update them because you might not be able to access the polling questions. So there are some very interesting questions coming up in the poll quizzes. And please do that. Please do go and update your Zoom app. Also, now let me introduce you to the speaker for today's event, who happens to be Farheen Zahara. She's an engineering manager at Ajackus and who has over like 10 plus years of experience in the IT industry. So probably you will get to know a lot from her, and she has a vast amount of understanding about the field. So she'll be the one who will be taking up today's event. I hope you enjoy each and every ounce of it, and please make sure to take down notes and just don't hesitate to ask any questions. Yeah, so enjoy the event. So yeah, over to you, Farheen. Now you can take this up. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Avinash. Thanks for that introduction. Hello, everyone. I wish you all greetings for the day. It's really nice to have all of you here. Let me just start. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Just a minute. Yeah, till we are getting the screen up and running. So yes, let me just share my screen. So, is my screen visible now?
Yes.
All right. So let us start the webinar with an interesting story. I hope all of you, most of you might have watched, Thor movie recently, Love and Thunder. So it's a little piece of story from that movie. So let us start with the story. Jane Foster is an astrophysicist. She actually gets diagnosed with fourth stage cancer. And then everybody says that she's going to die, she's not healing, and there is a reason why she's not healing. And she is not worried about dying at any point of time in her life. She was more worried about her life. She was thinking, am I going to wait till I die? Or because she was not seeing any purpose of her life till she dies. She didn't want to just wait and die at some point of time. So, and the reason why she was not healing was that she was she was friends with Thor. Thor, as you all know, a Marvel's character. She was in friends with Thor's hammer, and because she was in friends with the hammer, she was not healing. Her body was not showing any improvements. But what she decides is she decides to go and she decides to go and meet her old friend Mjolnir. Mjolnir is the hammer. Then what happens? She goes to Asgard and Mjolnir chooses her. And as soon as the hammer chooses Jane Foster, she becomes mighty Thor. And she fights for humanity like a true hero. And then she dies like a very, brave death. So the moral behind this story is that the purpose of what you're doing, the purpose of life is very important. Likewise, as a product engineer, it's very important that we understand what is the purpose of development that we are doing. What is the purpose of what is the purpose you're developing these products? So without that, you are not going to be, in a position to be passionate about what you're doing. So this was the reason we had this story. The reason behind having this webinar is setting the context right. So trying to understand what is the purpose of product development that we are doing. So let me go through the agenda. First, we'll try to understand about technology adoption and technology penetration in various domains in today's world. And then we go through the technology adoption stages in the industries, that is in the market. Then we try to understand about domain knowledge, and then how can we gather domain knowledge for our products, and then what is product refinement, user feedback channels, and then a little briefly about how we can build great software products. All right, so quickly moving on to technology adoption or penetration. So let's take an example. Imagine that it's a lazy Sunday morning. You just woke up maybe at around 10-11 a.m. and then you just figure out that you're out of stock in your kitchen, and there is nothing that you can cook, or there is nothing that you can prepare, or you're not in a mood to even cook. What is the first thing that we do these days? The first thing we do is we reach out to our phone, because we all know that we have apps there where you can either buy grocery, or you can also order food. So when you look at this, it's a very simple scenario, but technology has got rooted inside our lives this way. Every little thing that we go through in our lives is associated with technology these days. So even when you are paying, I feel that a lot of us these days, we have forgotten to get physical cash or physical money these days. When we get the salary, we are just paying everything online, and we have got used to paying everything online so much, so that these days we hardly get cash. We hardly have this money, physical money in our hand. So all of this is technology. The technology has really penetrated deep into our lives. So let us see. That's the reason why it is very important that we understand what we are doing. Now, because we are product engineers, it is a very good to have knowledge about the market that we are working with. You should understand what is the kind of market of industries that you're going to work with. So we should understand how the industries in the market adopt technologies. So very little, few of them are innovators, who are like these early young, research scholars, or this enthusiastic entrepreneurs who have these ideas and who want to who have also financial flexibility to actually start something new. And they are called as innovators. They just constitute of 2.5% of the industry. They are not really bothered about who has done it earlier. They're not really scared of failing. They're not really scared of being safe or anything. They're young, they have financial flexibility, and they just go with it. They just want to experiment. They want to know how it is. And they constitute of just 2.5% of the market. Now, early developers. These are also startups who have just got started, but they actually look for references from the innovators. They see how the innovators have done with the experimentation, and if they can, improve on that. These are also young, relatively young group who do a lot of R&D, who also believe in doing new things, but they are a little careful. They are not the ones who are not at all bothered. So they look at innovators. No, early adopters are just about 13.5%, you could say. Early majority. So early majority are people who have a little bit of financial flexibility, but they majorly look at what innovators and early adopters have got, how much they have failed, how much they have done right, what can be improved. And they also are a little safe when compared to the innovators and the early adopters. They constitute of 34% of the market. And then we have late majority, that is 34%. they late majority are the ones who have mature products. They believe in having mature products. They believe in not taking risks. They believe in looking at what others have done. They believe in focusing on what are the failures of the new products, new technology that has come, and only then they want to take a call. They are bothered about their value in the market. So all of these reasons, they also constitute of 34%. The late and the early majority constitute of the major part of the market, major chunk. They want to do something new. They want to experiment on the new technology, but at the same time, they are also trying to be safe. These are the companies that we have majorly in the market. Now, laggards are the ones who are not really up for changes. They don't really believe in changing or adopting to new technologies or taking risks. So they just want to focus on their close customers or family, and they just want to cater to them. So this is the kind of market that we are going to work with. This is how the industry is. And now, so knowledge domain. What do you mean by knowledge domain? In 1980s, it was the first time that the word fintech was termed. And after so many years, we now feel that fintech is one of the fastest growing domain. It's not just about fintech. It's become like a growing trend these days where it's a promise of just adding a segment or a sector of the market or any industry, and then you add tech to it. You just suffix tech to it, and it becomes like health tech, biotech, prop tech. These are domains. Now, why do we need to have knowledge about domain? We are just software developers. Should we just take up the tasks and just do what is being told to us? Or should we understand what exactly is going on? So that's the reason we need to know what is the domain all about. If you're going to work with a fintech company, you need to understand how the transactions are happening at the back end, how the money is being transferred, etc. Say for example, you are going to create an app for a police department to find criminals, and you're not aware that they actually have law enforcement enforcement laws. So that doesn't give you full control of what you're doing. And also, when you're not making attempts to understand what the thing is, you are not understanding, you're not trying to be passionate, or you're not understanding what kind of changes you're bringing to the society. Now, how can we gather knowledge for our product as product engineers? You always have to stay focused on what exactly is going on, other than just the meetings that we have in the office, other than the calls that we have, other than the requirements that we are getting from our clients. We should also actually have practical knowledge of what is going on, what are the problems that people are facing outside the office. It may be that they're spending a lot of time on the app. It might be that they are not able to switch things faster. Maybe they don't have the appropriate buttons or the appropriate functionalities. So all these can be cues which you can work on, but you actually have to go see them, and you have to empathize. Only then you understand the importance of what you're doing. And then you also need to understand the industry trends. Now, if you are working on a product, it would take you some time, say just 2 to 5% of your time, to just Google who are the other competitors in the market who are doing the same type of product, or what is the domain all about? How much have we technically progressed in this particular product? So if we are creating a product, is our product capable of handling situations that we might get in future? What are the things that we might face in future? and how much of it, how efficient is it right now in the present. So all of this is important. Gone are those days when our teams used to really work very hard, and then after working so much we come up with a solid app, and then it used to be used by generations together. These days we need to be agile. We have to keep changing. So we need to understand how our product is made up of. Is it agile? Are we able to change it anytime we want to? So these are things we actually need to think of. What is the trend these days in the industry? Then we also need to understand who are the people we actually work with. Stakeholder is someone who actually contributes to the success. They are the ones who actually help you complete the project successfully with their insights. Now, why do they do this? Because they have some vested, advantage. Maybe financially they are getting, or maybe they're getting their career advancement through this. So we have two types of stakeholders: internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. Now, internal stakeholders are the ones who are directly connected to your company. For example, it could be team members, then your project manager, your scrum manager, your account manager, your line manager, all of them. And also the management, maybe in your company. They are your internal stakeholders. And the external stakeholders may be the clients that you're working with, the people who test your product outside the company. Why is it so important to know who the stakeholders are? See, for your project or your product to be completed successfully, we need to have insights from these stakeholders. And also, when the project manager knows all the stakeholders and he or she communicates well about the advancement or the progress of the product, only then can there be a proper progress in the product development, and also ultimately lead to successful completion. So object key results, OKRs, this is termed by some of the biggest companies today in market. For example, Google, maybe Deloitte, they're using OKRs. So why should only they be the ones who are getting benefited out of this? OKRs is something that helps you, frame or channelize your ideas. For example, OKRs can get started or be created on an organizational level. Then, depending on what the organization is planning to do, we can have OKRs for the teams, inter-team. And then depending on that, the individuals can have their own OKRs. So what are OKRs? So you set the expectations. You set what can be the key expectation, or what are you expecting to do in this task, and what could be the possible results of this task. So all you're trying to do here is you're trying to stay aligned. You know what is going to be the task, what is the key task, and then what is the result of it. What is going to be the result? So, and you also try to understand what is the percentage of result that you can have for that particular task. How much have you completed? So it helps people stay focused on one particular task. This helps a lot during product development. So based on the OKRs, when the goal setting is done so very well in OKRs, it helps us even to channelize during our product refinement calls. When we are allocating tasks to our devs, to our QAs, we know exactly where we are going and how much have we succeeded. So that's the reason that OKRs are very important for a successful product development. Product refinement. Why do we need to understand what is product refinement? Why do we have so many product refinement calls? See, the product owners and the product development team, all of them need to be on the same page. They need to understand what is the user. Now, the team that is developing the product needs to understand what is the expectation of a product owner, the user acceptance criteria. That is the reason why we have a product refinement call, to understand the expectation. Secondly, we need to size the complexity of the tasks that are being assigned to us. What complexity is they are, what complexity are they related to? Is it medium, high, low? Or maybe we also have numbers. For example, in Jira, we can number them like 1, 3, 5, 8, 13. So setting complexity helps us in understanding what could be the time frame we would need to actually complete that task. Now that helps us to actually frame or design our sprints. And when we are capable to design or frame our sprints, then we know for sure how much of work can be completed in what time framework, and everybody stays on the same page. Then we know how much exactly we are going to complete. So that's the reason why we have refinement calls. And also, if we have this much of clarity in the refinement calls, it makes it easier for us or during our scrum calls or sprint planning calls, because we are set, we know what exactly is going to happen, and then our backlogs are clear, we know exactly where we are headed to. It's not like a never ending list that is going to go on. And then when I earlier when I spoke to you about understanding or empathizing about customers who are outside your office, or do you always need to be physically going out and looking at them? No, there are a lot of channels through which you can actually see what exactly a customer is going through. So it could be social media, or there are a lot of them: survey, polls, customer feedback communities, anything. You can just go see, read about them, read about your product. They could have like elaborately given a feedback about what they have felt about your product, or maybe they're frustrated. They could have just expressed express their frustration. So you just have to go through all of these feedback channels to understand where exactly we stand and what are the pain areas and where do we need to work on. So I think that was a lot of knowledge. Let us just have a little bit of funny time break. Sorry. Okay. So that was the whole life cycle in a very funny way, how a tester or BA and a developer would act during the product development. Now let us focus a little bit upon building great software products. So what are the things that we need to concentrate on when we are actually building products? This is our area as product engineers. This is our field. So let us focus on what we need to take care of. There are a couple of things. Complexity is the enemy. No matter what you're trying to create, if you have any piece of code that is really complex, that you're not able to debug, that you're not able to get into, and you're not able to change it, then there is no use of having it. That is the enemy which you will have to get rid of during your product development. So in 1960s, people thought, product development needs to be perfect. It has to be perfect. But we as human beings are not really perfect. So how do we actually test this? So in 1960s, people thought, let us come up with mathematical equations or mathematical, solutions and test it. But that didn't really, and that was called proof of correctness, but that didn't go well because these mathematical equations and problems became more complex than the program itself. So that didn't work, and we just move ahead. And then we came up with a lot of other, things that we need to do in order to make our product perfect. Now I feel that software development or product development is the most complex thing that we have in today's world. So you might say that, why do you say this? People also like make planes, they make a lot of other things. Why is software development so very complex? See, software development, even when you're building a plane, what is the most complex part of the plane? The software. If the software is not perfect, it can go wrong at any point of time. And yeah, it has the license to go wrong at the very wrong time also. So to avoid this, we need to have our software almost near perfect. That is perfect or near perfect at least. Let us see at some of the things that we can do to avoid complexity and have those near perfect, products. First of all, writing it down. So once you get the requirement from your client, what is the first thing that you need to do? Of course, you have to write it down because you are not going to remember it. It is going to be a long one. So writing down, when I say that, you anyways get documents, or you could have done documentation. And is that enough as a product engineer? No. As a product engineer, as a software engineer, you should be writing down the specifications. When you have understood this requirement from your client, the first thing that you need to do is write down the specifications, or maybe like a rough algorithm or a pseudocode, and then you write the tests. Once you have this in place, then you start coding. So what happens is, if you have tests in place, no matter how much of changes or modifications you want to make, maybe you want to add some functionalities, you are sure that these initial, the modules that you have created, the APIs that you have, the connections that you have done, you have made, are staying intact. They are not getting affected. And the new ones they have just got added to. So to make sure that you are 100% sure of what you have done, and no matter how much of changes you do, nothing's going to change your code, the first thing you need to do is write down the specifications of your product. And then avoid tight coupling. So in our software development, we have something called as, for example, let me just give you an example: inheritance. So a class is created initially when you start the project, when you know very little about the project. See, when you start the project, that is the time when you know little about your project. And when you are ending your project, that is the time when you know almost everything about the project. Now, if you have used inheritance, and if there is something that you have to change in your class, in your like parent class, the main class, what happens? There are child classes. If you make one change or something goes wrong in your main class, all your child classes are gone. Everything gets affected. So that's the that's the definition of tight coupling. When one part of the code is so very interconnected or dependent on the other part of the code, we have to avoid this dependency of code. So how can we do this? We can use references. So composition is the opposite of inheritance. So what happens is, in composition, we have two different methods, and one method can be referred by other method. Whenever there is a need, we can just call the other method. And once the work is done, we can just continue with our code. And so what happens is, when you just make changes, it's easier. If one module goes, just that one part is being affected, and you can work on it later. That becomes easier to handle. So when we start coding, I have seen, like, because I have worked with so many developers, I've seen that some of them have this habit of, you know, premature optimization. They just want to make their code look good, feel good. Yeah, they are bothered about the outcome right in the starting of, implementation, which is not a good thing, because I've seen them doing caching initially, because they feel that that could make their code faster. Please avoid doing this, because the less code you have to read, it is the better. It is always better. Less is always better. So, how you need to handle optimization in your code is, you first go about implementing your logic completely. And then once your logic is done, then you try to figure out what could be the possible bottlenecks. When I say bottlenecks, that is a term used to figure out where exactly your application is slowing down, what is going wrong in your application. And then you try to optimize them. So that is the right way of doing it. First, you have a code that runs, and then you try to figure out how to optimize it, how to make it better. So that is always the good thing to do, because if you do premature optimization, you'll end up having a lot of unnecessary code. When I say unnecessary code, it is a bloated code. That is a good thing to have. Like, that code might be doing something good, but it is not really needed. So that adds up to your lines, and it really makes your code messier and bigger. And then the most important concept, the aspect of product development is security. See, we have to be very careful about security of our application, because this is not seen in the application. You don't get to see that as, any other, say maybe button or any other, graphics or something that you have, which is like really looking good, or you don't get appreciations as soon as you look at the app for security. But if you have a very good looking and a nice application, and then you start using it, and all of your credit card details and everything gets hacked, it's of no use. You need to be 100% sure about your security, how secure your app is. So this can be, overseen at times, because the client doesn't really get to see it, but please be careful about this. Thanks, everyone. That was the presentation all about. If you have question and answers, I'm open for it. Are there any questions from anyone? Okay, so there is no preference. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Valentino, for the question. So the question is, what is your preference of story point to time distribution? The whole reason why we have story points is to understand how well the time is getting distributed along with the complexity. So the story point that you have in Jira, I think you're referring to Jira. So that actually, yes, Jira. So that actually helps you understand, what is the complexity as well as the time that will be taken for you. If you can go through the definitions of 1, 2, 3, there will be definitions stating what is the time frame for the each story point. So it could be, one would be some, 4 to 8 work hours, or 2 would be something else. So it constitutes of both the story point. Thank you. Any other question? Yogesh, thank you, Yogesh, for the question. How important it is that TDD, BDD approach while we develop software product? A very good question, Yogesh. TDD or BDD means test-driven development and behavior-driven development. Now, if you don't feel that this is important, then you're definitely going wrong with your product development. I'll tell you why. Because this is something called as technical debt. that gets you at some point or the other. If you're not doing this at this point of time, when you're starting the project, you feel like, oh, let me just save some time and let me just avoid TDD, tests before I do the development, and you just go on doing it. Then later, when your project has really become big and huge and you want to make changes to it, you have no way to figure out if anything else is not getting affected when you are trying to implement something new or make modifications to the existing code. You can't you're not able to make sure if nothing is breaking. I hope I explained the answer. So that's the reason why TDD is very important. Valentino. Yes, Valentino. A TDD approach may not be preferable in all cases, but most of the applications that we use these days, or maybe let me say frameworks that we use these days, prefer TDD, because that way you are 100% sure about the code that you have written. Yeah, it could just be unit tests also. Anything works, but you have to keep in check about the logic that you have implemented. Any thoughts on writing good test cases? Yes, writing good test cases is important, but what I'm trying to refer to here is you getting an understanding, a good understanding of what exactly is the requirement from maybe your product manager or the product owner. See, if you're a small team, maybe you're interacting with the product owner itself. So you trying to understand what exactly is the logic, and for you to be 100% sure that you have implemented the logic well, you have to come up with your test cases. For example, booking a plane ticket, you have to like maybe check for n cases. You have to check with your product owners what are the possible things that they're looking for while they're booking a plane ticket, and accordingly you have to first come up with a specification and algorithm and then write test cases on that. I hope you answered your question. Thanks. Any other questions, guys? Anubhava Gupta, thank you for your question. Can you share some points on documentation during product development? See, documentation is extremely important because that actually helps you understand where you are headed to, or at any point of time, if you, because product development, you're always going to have team members who are going to keep changing, number one. So if you have to give knowledge transfer for your team members, it becomes extremely important that you maintain documentations appropriately. First of all, we need to have a document around what the product is all about. All right, that is the basic one. And what is the version that, if you have versions in your products, obviously what is the version that you're working on. Secondly, if you have a plan for testing, I mean, if you're a QA, then you need to have test plans. Then you need to also explain why you're testing certain things, and you need to have reports for it. If you're a developer also, you need to have a bug report. See, when you actually report or document your bugs, it makes it easier for somebody else who's going through similar type of bugs to find answers. If you've already done it and if you've documented it, maybe they just refer back and try to understand. So there are various ways with which you can document. It could be the simplest, could be like just a Google document, or maybe there are a lot of other ways of doing it. Whatever suits you best. We should keep it as simple as possible, but documenting every single thing that we feel is important is necessary. And we have to keep it in a place where it is being shared with everyone. I hope I answered your question. Thanks. Any other questions? Thanks, Valentino, for the question. As a product manager, what did you suggest for prioritizing tasks? So, prioritizing tasks mainly happens during your product refinement when you have your product owner on the call. So, first of all, we need to understand which functionality is important and what is the whole functionality doing in that particular app. If it is very important, if it is a major functionality, then we have to prioritize accordingly, and we also have to see what is a timeline or time frame we would need to implement that particular functionality. And depending on that, we have to, that is the reason why I told you that we have product refinement calls. On these product refinement calls, we actually help even the developers understand what is the priority, and then we fix the tasks accordingly. So it is mainly about what the product owner actually feels and what is needed for the functioning of the app, proper functioning of the app. So it depends on that, both these factors. Thanks. On the same line of documentation, what is the best approach to keep track of all the enhancements that has been done for a single feature? See, if you are a BA, a business analyst, or a QA, business analyst would basically have all the requirements that he or she would have got from the product owner, captured it, and then documented it, and just have it like, oh, maybe version 1, version 2, version 3. You can, if you're a BA, that is business analyst. But if you're a QA, you're focused on what could be the test cases, what would be the end cases of that particular functionality, and you create document around that. So that should also be versioned as V1, V2, or something like that, or whatever enhancement it is. And then if you are a developer, most importantly, you have to write tests in your code. That helps you understand that you have implemented that logic, and you have not, from the changes that you have done, from the enhancements that you have done, you have not broken anything else that was already existing. So these are some important things. And also, as a developer, if you have encountered some bugs during enhancements, you have to report that as well in a document. So these are the things that you need to document when you're enhancing something, any functionality. I hope I answered your question, Anubhava. We have one more question from Valentino. Should we prioritize on deadline basis or prioritize by value offering of the product? Very good question, Valentino. If you feel that there is a technical debt, you as a developer, as a product developer, needs to understand that it is important for you to go talk to your product manager. If you are in contact directly with your product owner, that's a good thing to do. You can directly talk to the product owner. Otherwise, at least talk to your product manager and tell them that this is going to be a technical debt. If we don't do it this way, later on, when our project is really huge, we're going to face some problems. And unfortunately, if your product manager says, just do the thing, I mean, just get the task done and, get the sprint, the whole sprint that has been planned, get it done on time. And if she or he is not bothered about the technical debt, then mostly maybe you're working in the wrong place. Just kidding. That is going to just pile up. So at least you have to report it. You have to let them know that there is a technical debt, and this can lead us into problems later. I hope I answered your question. Are there any other questions? Suresh Kumar. Hi, I'm asking a general question. I'm Hadoop and Spark developer, and I have seen most of the service-based companies, they used own tool or application that is related to business logic and based on business requirements. So how can we get to know about this full use case about tool or application? Can you explain a little bit? Okay, so we are talking about service-based company? That's a good question to answer because Ajackus is a service-based company. And you're from Ajackus. And yeah, you feel that, they use their own tools and applications and to relate to business logic. I think you should be speaking about this to your managers. This is if you have a way of correlating your existing whatever tools that you're using in your company to the tools that are being used in your clients, then it is a good thing to have. Maybe it is a little complex, but that helps. But if you are flexible enough to use the same tools that are being used by your clients, then it makes your job much easier. Or at least if it is a similar thing, you have to look into the similarities. Or if you feel that there are a lot of issues or there are a lot of differences in the tools that are being used by your client and you, then you have to actually just talk to your managers, product managers or product owners about it, and let them know that you are in need of using the tools that the client has been using, and see how that works. I just hope it works out well for you, Suresh. I hope I answered your question. The next question is from Anubhava Gupta. What is the best stage during product development to introduce monitoring and logging of the product? When should a developer or a lead start thinking about these backend chores? Okay, so very good question, Anubhava. Monitoring and logging of the product should start immediately once we start with the production development. Once we start with the production, once we are starting to develop the production environment, we have to have the monitoring and the logging in place, because every single thing that is going on should be monitored and logged at any point of time if it goes down, so that we can have a chance to just look into what's going on. We go into the logs, and that helps. I hope I answered your question, Anubhava. Any other questions?
I suppose we are done on the Q&A part.
Okay, thank you so much, everyone. I had a wonderful time. I hope you had the same too.
So, yeah, thank you so much, Farheen, for this wonderful session. I mean, that was quite a rigorous Q&A going on. Although I couldn't understand many of the almost all of the stuff, but yes, I did know that everyone got to learn a lot from this session. And thank you everyone for joining today. So I hope you liked the session and you got to know a lot from it. Just before you leave, I've just put up a link on the chat section. If you can access that, please follow us to for any career updates or and for upcoming events like this, which are obviously quite you'll develop quite a learning curve while you attend all these kind of sessions, and it will probably help you in your career, right? So please feel free to join us. And just before you leave, there'll be a feedback form that will pop up on the screen. Just please take at least 2 or 3 minutes of your time to fill the feedback form, so that even we know that where we were right, wrong, and where we can correct and improve us. So thank you everyone for joining today. Have a good night, and have a great day in the coming time. Yeah, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Farheen.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.